Listen, there comes a time when the church needs to do everything they can do to take care of God's man. See, some churches think their job is to keep the pastor poor and humble. I've seen those situations personally. I know a church, they brought before the church that they wanted to give the pastor a $5 a week raise. $5 a week. And one guy in the congregation who worked a union job had just been bragging about what a nice pay raise they got down at his job. Stood up and opposed giving the pastor a $5 a week raise. What kind of mentality is that? No. By the way, I'm not looking for a pay raise. I want you to have the principles. So Paul's dealing with this. In chapter 10, we don't have time to go there, but Paul goes into Israel and the need for discernment. That's what we're talking about. The situation in Corinth, and it's all three of these chapters. 8, 9, 10. He's dealing with this whole issue, if you will. And then, the context we've read, the principle we've given you. We'll go over to Romans in just a minute. But in chapter 10, he's going to go into Israel. And the first part of the chapter talks about 5 distinct advantages Israel had. How God had blessed them and things. And then verses 6 through 10, he talks about the failures of Israel. And I think it was Brother Renzi preached out of that particular text when he was here. Look at chapter 10, verse 12. In verse 11 he says, now all things happened unto them for ensamples. He says, everything we read about Israel was given to us as examples for us. Some of them for good, some of them for bad. And he's just talked about that there. And they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore, let him that thinketh he standeth take heed, lest he fall. So he's talking about squandering privileged blessings. He used the example here of Israel. And then he'll go back to this thing about eating food served to idols. In verse 16 he says, the cup of blessing which we bless, is not the communion of the blood of Christ? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body? For we being many are one bread and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, Israel after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? What say I then? That the idol is anything? Or that which is offered to the sacrifice to idols is anything? No. But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of dinners of devils. Do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Let no man seek his own, but every man another one's wealth or well-being. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles, that's the marketplace, that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. All right, if you're going to buy meat down at the shambles, down at the marketplace, don't even discuss whether it's been offered idols. Don't even go there, because it don't make any difference to you. It's just meat offered to idols. Idols are nothing. He says, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness of the earth. He says, here's what he's saying. Don't ask questions about it, and understand God gave us all of it to eat. It all belongs to God. Then he goes on. If any man of them that believe not, that's unsaved, bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go. All right, now he's dealing with another issue. All right, these people lived around Corinthians, saved people in Corinth, unsaved people in Corinth, just like you live around unsaved people. Have any of you ever been invited to have dinner with unsaved people? Sure. You still have a level of with him. So he says, hey, by the way, he says, if you're invited to a feast and you be disposed to go, you accept the invitation. Whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. Again, don't make it an issue. To you, it's just meat, so don't even ask the question. If you don't ask the question, it's not going to bother you. It's not going to be a problem to you. You with me? All right? But he goes on. But, if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols. Now he says this, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? For if I by grace be a partaker, why am I evil spoken of for that which... Whether therefore you eat, or you drink, or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. Give none offense. Don't cause somebody else a problem spiritually. Give none offense neither to the Jews, nor to the Gentiles, nor to the church of God. Even as I please all men in all things, not seeking mine own profit, but the profit of many, that they might be saved. Now he's back to, he doesn't take anything from them. He's saying, I minister and I don't take anything for the profit of many, that I not be a stumbling stone. That somebody would say, he's a money grubber. He's in it for the money. Or he's stealing from us. So all of that, he's giving principles. They didn't have direct knowledge of, should I eat that meat or shouldn't I? Principles. And we're going to look at those. Oh, I said we'd look at Romans for just a minute. Let me back up. There we go. In Romans, go over there. Any of this making sense to you? You say, well, I don't eat meat offered to idols. Wonderful. We don't have that problem, do we? We don't have temples to idols and this situation where they're selling the meat in the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. But this is given to us for an example. How do we handle these situations? Now we're in Romans 14. Maybe you are, I'm not. And really, he's kind of, I guess, pounding the same nail. In verse, he says, him that is weak in the faith, receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. Somebody who's weak in the faith, you take him in, but you try to help him. You teach him how to make decisions. He says, for one believe that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Okay, how many of you know a vegan? Maybe you are a vegan. Well, that's what he's talking about here. See, if we went out to eat together and you're a vegan, you're going to be sitting at the same table with a guy who's going to enjoy steak. And I'm going to be sitting at a table with somebody who likes to eat grass. Here's what he's saying. By the way, he says, I'm not trying to pick on you, but he says, who is weak eateth herbs. Never mind. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not. Let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God hath received him. He said, listen, if people have different ideas, if they're not unscriptural, leave them alone. I just believe the Bible says we shouldn't eat meat. Well, don't eat meat. But don't judge people who do. There's no principle in the Bible that says I shouldn't eat meat. Yes, sir. Okay, talk big. To make people abstain? Yeah, that was another issue. And it's basically this issue. Some people were, some people weren't, and they were saying if you partake of meat, you're a heathen. And they're forbidding, they're teaching that you shouldn't eat meat. They're forbidding it. Now, listen, some of you younger people don't know. I was brought up Roman Catholic, and until 1961, I guess it was, when the Pope had an enclave and they redid the Catholic religion, Catholics were not allowed to eat meat on Friday. And I hated Friday. I did not like fish. I don't know why. So on Friday, if you went to a public school and you had lunch, you had a choice of usually macaroni and cheese, fish sticks or something like that. And when I went home, we had to have fish. Forbidding the eating of meats. Well, let's get back to Romans here. He says, if there's not a scriptural principle, then don't pick on somebody. He said, it's not a matter. Hello? I believe the Bible would teach us that those who are in places of authority need to set the right example. Now, we don't tell people how you got to dress to come to church, but if you want to be a part of our ministry, then we expect certain things. And it's because of this kind of thing. Now, we've been taken to task that we're too strict with this. Listen, our standards are based on Bible principle. Yeah. We didn't just pull a bunch of stuff out of the air. People say, well, I don't agree with that. Hey, whatever you, but we're not changing. Hello? Because we can't change because we believe what we are doing is based on Bible principle. Listen, that's a real struggle today because a lot of people don't want to live by biblical principle. I'm talking about people in our churches. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I've said it over and over and over again. The church, when I say that, I'm talking about in general in America, the Bible-preaching evangelical type churches are by and large carnal today. What's that mean? It means they're controlled by the flesh. They're more concerned about living according to the world's standards and the world's ideas and the world's customs than they are about what the Bible says. And see, when you start living by what the Bible says, you're going to be branded. Because here's the fact of it. How the Bible says we're supposed to live is 180 degrees from how the world says we should live. See, Christians, and I understand this, it's a natural thing, we want to be accepted. We want to be liked. Anybody in here who don't want to be liked? Just as soon the world spit on you? No. It's a natural thing. You want to be accepted. You want to be liked. And so we have a tendency to want to fit the pattern that makes people liked. So we begin to act like those who we want to be liked by expect us to act. Remember back when you went to high school? Some of us who are older can look back and see the different fads that came through among teenagers. And everybody had to do this to be popular. How many of you ladies remember the beehive haircut? What was that? Oh, they made it like a big beehive on your head. And you'd watch American Bandstand and they'd have all that, so you'd say, well, I got to get that. How many of you ever saw Fonzie? Arthur Fonzarelli. Well, if you're a young person, you may not understand his outfit. That's what was cool in the 50s. Jeans, white t-shirts, sometimes the sleeve rolled up a little bit. And if you were going to be popular, if you were going to be accepted, you dress that way. If you didn't, you were weird. Nobody wants to be weird. So what do? That if the world says it's okay, then it's okay. But the Bible says we're supposed to be Bible believers and we're supposed to make our decisions based on the Bible. Even when it goes against what the world says. Oh, I'm stuck on those fads. You remember the women wearing those glasses that look like cat eyes? Yeah. And you know, if you had Superman, Clark Kent glasses, you're looking at me funny. You young generation don't know. He had big, thick, black glasses. If you were a girl and you had those, you were talked about. You weren't part of the cool ones. Yeah. And on we could go. But it's interesting as you watch the fads and you see people line up with it. Now, the unsaved, that's what they live for. To be accepted, to be part of it.
Today there are all these electronic gadgets, people with these smartphones and stuff. And how many are getting killed walking across the street even, that aren't paying attention to where they're going?
Yeah, you're kind of judged by what kind of phone you have. And everybody got to have one, that kind of thing. But we've got to learn discernment. Now, I'm out of time, so we'll pick up there next week. Next week, I'm going to give you the principles. I'm going to give you some principles to plug in. That when you have a decision to make, is it black or is it white? You're in a gray area. Hey, listen to me. God does not want us living in the gray area. God is a God of black and white. It either is or it ain't. God says it's okay or God says no. We create the gray area. I'm going to show you how to get out of the gray. Learn how to discern what's black, what's white. Father, thank you again for this book and the principles and the precepts, the guidance that it offers us. Thank you for Paul dealing with this idea. And Lord, nothing's changed. They had the same dilemma then as we have now. Should I or shouldn't I? Is it okay or isn't it? Where should I be